Hi everyone, my name is Miles, and welcome to the next installment of my Twisted Music series. Though it has been a short while, we've looked into some rather dark tunes in the past, featuring thematic elements that make them altogether chilling to listen to when fully understood. Some songs hide a dire message behind catchy lyrics and upbeat music, while others are far less discreet and use a different means of conveying their message. Today we'll be looking at a song called Novocaine by Creep P and Ghost. It's a clever tune with real-life horror hidden in every lyric, carefully disguised yet ripe with intent. Before we begin, I want to offer a disclaimer. Due to the sensitive content discussed in today's project, viewer discretion is advised. I'll offer an on-screen trigger warning for the following topics: gaslighting, trauma, manipulation, and psychological themes. Please watch responsibly. Novocaine. The title of the song in and of itself refers to a medication, procaine hydrochloride, more commonly referred to as Novocaine. It's a local anesthetic which is specifically used to numb areas of the body. This somewhat pervasive drug affects the body by blocking nerve signals generally used to transmit pain, causing numbness for a period of time. I'm discussing this first because it's the first tip to what I believe this song is truly hinting at. However, before we dive into the lyrics themselves, I want to remind you that this is my interpretation of the song. It can also be taken at face value as a chilling, horror-filled story about a dentist who should no longer hold a medical license. This is a surface-level theme seen in other related songs by the same artists. But, as someone who has personally dealt with the underlying issues that I believe this song is cleverly underlining, I couldn't pass up the chance to analyze it for all it's worth. With that being said, let's begin. With the name of the song now having been explained, I urge you to listen to the full song on your own time before continuing with this project. Once you've done that, we'll progress as I go through the lyrics myself and probe them for deeper meaning. The song begins with the ominous sound of approaching footsteps and the line, "The doctor will see you now." This already sets the stage for the relationship between the person being spoken to and the entity that's established as being in charge, clearly stating that they're a doctor/dentist, with the implied detail that they already know more than the patient they're admitting. Directly after that, the song sets into a rhythm, with the dentist affording our patient some pleasantries. But this front quickly crumbles. After saying, "How are you today? What seems to be the problem?" Without skipping a beat, the dentist continues by noting, "I don't think that's the case. Something is wrong, and it's all your fault." This spins the implied narrative on its head. A medical practitioner should practice bedside manner, even if the patient has done something ill-informed which ultimately led them to seek care. Any sense of compassion is completely abandoned by this dentist, setting the theme for the rest of the song. Moving immediately onward, the dentist once again reinstates pleasantries before claiming that, in the short amount of time they've been speaking, without further information or patient participation, that they've already found a diagnosis. Without giving the patient a moment to either confirm or deny what they're hearing, nor add any further details as to their case, the dentist says, "I have just what you need," before reminding the patient that something is indeed wrong and that it's all their fault. Seeming to sense a growing unease, the dentist begins offering lukewarm condolences by saying, "Don't be afraid." However, in the same breath, they once again blame the patient in a bold-faced way, stating, "You're making things worse," and restating their position by nearly shoving it down the patient's throat with an assertion like, "I should know because I'm the doctor here," once again putting undue emphasis on their status as a dentist who should be owed undeniable trust, even though they've shown no clear reason for why this trust should be given. They've ignored their patient, taken very few personal notes about the issue, and have already shown how hot and cold they can be by following up a skin-deep sentiment with condescending reminders about their status and professional position. Though, seeming to sense the patient's wariness, the dentist goes on to say, "Don't run away. I'll throw the treatment in reverse. Everything that you need is prescribed by me." This sentence alone is a huge indication of how dire the situation has become. With little to no genuine interactions having been achieved between the dentist and the patient, the dentist openly threatens to withdraw treatment if the patient tries to leave, and then once again makes an overarching claim that everything the patient needs can only be prescribed by the dentist and the dentist alone. Then we're treated to a rant as the dentist lays down their own written law, saying, "First of all, let's establish one thing. A kind heart like me really doesn't have to do this. You don't deserve it." The dentist isn't mincing words here. The patient's state is dire, and any kindness afforded to their condition is undeserved and unearned. The dentist continues on their tirade by following that up with, "So pay your fees with appreciation. You're in my debt for as long as you need medication for a chronic condition." Feeling as if he is owed not only respect but compensation, the dentist clearly notes that they're the only method available to the patient for achieving satisfying or successful results treatment-wise. It's interesting to note that they mention the patient's condition as chronic, meaning that it's not something that can be cured, but something which needs continued treatment and will return to become an issue again without such a regime. But, as if this browbeating isn't already disturbing enough, another angle is introduced. After playing on our patient's emotions and feelings of desperation, the dentist employs another worrying tactic, saying, "And everybody is watching. Everybody wants to know, what in the world is wrong with you there, over there? Everybody noticed the abomination inside your mouth." This is a particularly important line because it's an open contradiction, which the dentist is stating unapologetically. They've clearly already upset their patient with their openly poor bedside manner. But as if that wasn't enough, they've gone on to paint a picture of how other people see their patient. The dentist alleges that everyone can see the patient's issues and are looking upon the patient with some form of implied disgust, noting that everyone has noticed the abomination in their patient's mouth. However, given that the issue is stated as being purely internal, i.e., within the mouth, it's fairly clear that not everyone would be perceptive enough to notice it without the patient opening their mouth and putting themselves on display. This is just another form of manipulation on the dentist's part, forcefully attempting to endear the patient to them while painting them as a social outcast for their condition. They go on to say, "Now don't make this harder than it has to be. You're the one pulling teeth for an eternity. Take this once in a lifetime chance. Your infection shall have its final dance." Once again, we're given a sentence rife with condescension. The patient is painted as the one with the ultimate issue, an issue that has complicated the dentist's job. Then, as if that wasn't enough, the dentist adds a lie, claiming that they can cure the patient's infection. It's important to note here that the dentist previously referred to the patient's condition as chronic. Now he's actively touting the idea that the infection can indeed be cured, with finality, lulling the patient into a false sense of security after having previously manipulated them. Then, we have the introduction of Novocaine, the drug which I discussed earlier. With a small pinch, let's administer the Novocaine. The dentist begins, but then moments later he adds, "It's not that painful, so why in the world are you crying?" Once again, he discredits the patient's feelings in an open and negative manner, marking them as overly sensitive and irritating. This is where the mood takes an unprecedented turn. The dentist clearly airing their grievances with a sense of entitlement. "I gave you treatment. You didn't even feel a thing in the first place. Oh, how sad. You made excuses to dissociate." This line is another important one, because not only is the dentist invalidating the patient's feelings, he's openly and unashamedly patronizing the patient, even going so far as to shame their client for dissociating. Pausing for a moment, I want to discuss this topic a bit. Dissociation is the body's way of limiting traumatic or upsetting stimuli from openly affecting the person involved. This normally involves a disconnect from their memories, emotions, thoughts, or the current reality, sometimes in gradual steps and sometimes in one immediate shift. Either way, it's a bodily response to undue stress, trauma, or confusion. Though the dentist mentions this as if it's completely unnecessary, despite the horrible way that they've been treating their patient up until this point. And they're not done. No. The dentist's rage continues as he growls, "You're bleeding now because you never floss, and I'm the one that deals with your loss." Once again, blame is being pinned to the patient alone, and the dentist paints themselves in a different light, as if they're being philanthropic by dealing with such a disgusting situation. Then they give one set of direct instructions, saying, "So open your mouth and say ah." Only instead of giving this command once, it's almost maniacally repeated over and over and over again. A constant reminder of the patient's vulnerable position and the way that the dentist is forcing it into being. When that's not enough, they return to repeating, "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You're the one pulling teeth for an eternity. Take this once-in-a-lifetime chance, and your infection shall have its final dance." Again, we're greeted with a confusing admission, implicating both parties, but placing the final blame on the patient alone. The patient is once again reminded of a chronic condition where they'll be pulling teeth or dealing with the issue for a lifetime. Yet the dentist once again reminds them that they're the ultimate cure, foregoing the idea of a chronic illness at all, and masking it behind the veil of disillusionment by pushing the idea of ultimate success, not some form of continued care. Don't be afraid, you're making things worse. I should know because I'm the doctor here. Don't run away. I'll throw the treatment in reverse. Everything you need is prescribed by me. The dentist restates their earlier words with a new intensity, following that up by asking the patient to once again open their mouth and remain that way. This is when things ultimately get really dark. After the patient has once again opened themselves up, the dentist admits the chilling truth, saying, "Now, all of your memories must be side effects of the anesthesia. I never did anything to warrant your hatred towards me." We know this to be absolutely false. The patient is completely aware of what is going on and what is being asked of them. This is displayed in their ability to open their mouth when directed to do so. They are present at points between dissociation, yet the dentist is quick to blame the medication for any unwanted memories that may crop up, incriminating them for malpractice or mistreatment. In this way, they discount the patient's entire experience and pawn it off on the very medication they themselves administered, completely smoothing over the unethical and insensitive treatment plan they've employed. But if that last line implied that the torture was somehow over, that implication is proved wrong, because the next thing the dentist says is, "Anyway, let's try again." And once more, they urge the patient to comply by opening their mouth. This time, however, our patient seems to fight back, because the dentist then utters the words, "Don't pull away. You're making things worse. I should know because I'm the surgeon here." This statement is one that immediately redefines things. The patient has had enough and is attempting to extricate themselves from the situation. But the dentist, who referred to himself as a doctor before, is elevating his position to that of a surgeon, giving him an exact reason and direct permission to dig deeply and perform surgical procedures on an even more intimate scale. As a final note, they repeat, "Don't be afraid, I've given you everything. All the teeth I pull are mine to keep. I tried to help you. You chose to refuse. If you want it that way, I'm going to operate. Forever and a day, you never had a say." The dentist places ultimate credence upon themselves by speaking lavishly about how they've given their patient everything. The teeth that they've pulled are owned completely by them and won't be returned to the patient despite them having been part of the patient's body. The patient attempts to extricate themselves, only to be told that the dentist is going to operate anyway, reminding their patient that the illusion of choice was just a facade, and that they never had a say to begin with. They finish the song by softly reminding the patient of their twisted maxim, saying, "I know exactly what's best for you," twice, before bringing the song to a horrifying close. Despite displaying a lack of knowledge and consistency, the song ends with the dentist repeating that they are still superior and should be trusted emphatically despite their mismanagement of the entire situation and their constant condescension of their patient. This is where the story gets really deep, because if we remove the assigned roles of doctor and patient, using them only to further define hierarchy positions for the people they represent, what we're left with is an inside look at an unhealthy relationship and an open display of toxic gaslighting between an abuser and their victim. But what exactly is gaslighting? The direct definition is that it's a form of psychological manipulation in which one party undermines another person's sense of reality, sanity, or memory in an attempt to gain control, power, or influence over that individual. They attempt to deny, minimize, or distort the reality of their victim, discounting or discrediting their experiences or feelings in an attempt to put them at a disadvantage and make them question their experiences, perception, and judgment. With this tactic, the gaslighter's goal is to ultimately destroy their victim's sense of self-worth and confidence, in turn causing them to seek out the gaslighter for an aligned view of the world, how to feel, behave, or proceed. Gaslighters may call a victim by rude or condescending names in an attempt to devalue them. They may distort the victim's recounting of events, their emotions, or even their fears. This sort of treatment can lead to long-term effects and profuse feelings of confusion, which can bolster conditions like anxiety, often paired with overwhelming isolation, complete loss of confidence and self-esteem, and deep feelings of confusion or displacement. It's a widespread and unfortunate situation, which I believe deserves far more attention than it's given. So how does this fit into the song? I'm sure that if you've made it this far, you'll have a fair idea. But let's go back and discuss the signs and signals that let you know that this song is showcasing a relationship in which one party is gaslighting the other. The song's name is Novocaine, and that's the drug that's administered during the song's runtime. Looking back now, it's almost unmistakable that it's this medication that is used. Not only does it block out feelings of pain, but it works in a way in which it numbs selected physical trauma. This drug acts in the same way that our gaslighter does, by distorting the patient's perception of the situation they're in and blocking out their natural pain receptors so that they're more vulnerable and easily manipulated. The song hits on a handful of points, some more openly and then a few others a bit more discreetly. On one hand, it could simply be the story of one odd, vengeful dentist torturing their unhappy patient. And at face value, that's mostly true. However, if we look further, we can tell that the situation, while using certain dental terms, is truly reflecting how a gaslighter will treat their victim, all the dental analogies aside. This can be seen from the first line to the final one, examples littered throughout the project. This horrifying process begins with the discrediting of the patient's feelings. Emotions like pain, fear, and shock are tossed to the wayside in light of the singer's presumed knowledge and esteem. They insert themselves into the story as an overbearing and ulterior being who guides their senseless and idiotic victim into further dependency verse by verse. They employ gaslighting techniques early on, stating that there's simply a kind heart and that the victim doesn't deserve their time, attention, or care, and is owed certain dues for these things. Then, flying in the face of that admission, they establish themselves as the only point of treatment, further distorting the relationship by causing their victim to feel as if they're completely dependent and are being offered a service or favor by the gaslighter. This, while completely backwards, can lead to feelings of relief, the victim believing that the gaslighter is acting out of some twisted sense of benevolence, and that they would seldom find such kind treatment elsewhere. Even when this is far from the truth, those who gaslight others are manipulative in nature and can bend even the simplest emotions when given the chance, confirming and continuing to create circumstances that put the victim at a disadvantage. The singer then alienates them, noting that everyone is watching them, seeing their intimate parts and being repulsed by them in a way that the singer is somehow not. Even though, to note, the singer does feel a sense of disgust, they still offer their assistance in a way that makes them seem like the only option for relief. The singer repeatedly asks for compliance from the victim by demanding they say ah, bearing their soul or private details, then consoling them emptily after asking them to bear their everything. This is an underhanded ploy to gain a sense of reliance from the victim, encouraging a broader sense of false confidence. The singer then finishes up the entire charade by outright denying their victim's crumbling sanity. They note the fact that their victim is being tormented to such a degree that their body is actively seeking relief by straying towards dissociation. This is a severe reaction to psychological or physical trauma that's openly noted. The singer makes this clear by saying, "Oh, how sad you've made excuses to dissociate," blaming even that on the victim instead of anything that they've done personally. The victim's issues and misgivings have been claimed by the singer and forced far away, the reference here being, "All the teeth that I pull are mine to keep." In this way, the singer has become a savior of sorts, picking out any experience that they want to withhold from the victim and sequestering those experiences away with mumbled placation. Anything that implicates them is removed and made to disappear, the singer taking full control of the situation in every way that they know how. Then, the singer instates themselves as the cure for all the problems which have been shared between the two, elevating themselves to a position in which they are the only cure. The moment that the victim attempts to fight back, to claim their own autonomy, and reject the gaslighter's tactics, noted in lines where the gaslighter says, "Don't pull away," telling the victim that they're the one making things worse, they're completely shut down and discredited. Once a relationship like this has been established, breaking free is incredibly hard to do. It's a process that is often long, fraught with hardships and emotionally, mentally, and physically draining. In this song, it sounds as if the gaslighter has indeed won, ending the song by restating the undying refrain, "I know exactly what's best for you," before we hear a crunching sound signifying the end of the song completely. Now, in the original context, this is seen as either a tooth being pulled, a jaw being fractured, possibly, or something along those lines. But in our translation, I take this to mean that the fight between the gaslighter and victim has come to an end, either by the singer lamenting that they knew what was best as the victim flees, the crunch being somewhat irrelevant or just part of the initial narrative of the dentist and his patient, or by the victim getting the gaslighter into such a worked up state that they do something to physically harm the victim, who then ceases to fight any longer. Again, this is mostly speculation, but something to note all the same. Gaslighting in relationships, both romantic and platonic, can lead to horrible consequences. As you've seen in today's song, the process can be hot and cold, littered with condolences and familiarities, but then riddled by manipulation and disregard. Sadly, it's what makes relationships like these as common as they are. It isn't always as black and white or easy to discern what's actually going on when you're the victim. This song does a really great job at giving us a one-way narrative from the gaslighter's point of view. The only real things we learn about the victim is that they're mostly silent through the main points of the song, only speaking up very, very seldomly. And then, in the end, they fight back, most likely losing that battle when they finally decide to act after continued torture. This song artfully displays the situation in a way that is easily identifiable by using the viewpoint of a dentist preying upon their unwilling patient. On the surface, it's a narrative that is easy to follow, but I believe the true point of the song lies within the disturbing story and the underlying issues it describes. The lyrics are artful in their portrayal, and the message is poignant. As someone who has experienced gaslighting in my own life, when I heard this song for the first time, I immediately made certain connections. For those who've been in a similar experience, perhaps you notice the underlying theme here as well. What I want you to take away from this project is that this is an issue that I can't spread awareness for enough. If you see gaslighting behavior anywhere with anyone, please speak up. If you have lived through gaslighting in any way, shape, or form, know that you are seen and understood, and that if you make the decision to fight back, you are valid and should be owed as much support as possible. Speak to those that you trust, and if you don't feel as if you have anyone in your life like that, please consider seeking professional help. I know personally there are a handful of online groups for people suffering in situations like the one described in this song. There is always help at hand somewhere. The first step, however, is recognizing that gaslighting is a problem, giving it a name officially, and admitting that it is part of your life. This can be the hardest step for some. However, once you begin that journey, you're one step closer to relief. No one deserves to be treated like the victim in today's song. Everyone's feelings, emotions, joys, fears, and traumas are valid and worthy of recognition. You are worth that and more. If you or someone you know is in a relationship where gaslighting techniques are being employed, please seek help. I'd love for songs with underlying messages like this to become unrealistic in the near future. No one deserves to be gaslit for any reason, period. Every situation can be worked out calmly and logically, with empathy as a focal point, and that's something I absolutely believe in. Thank you for joining me for today's project. I know that the topic was a heavy one, but I appreciate you for sticking it out and making it to the end of today's video. Thank you for your time, and as always, I love you guys, and stay awesome. Bye.